Let's do this. Hello, my name is Maris. I am a dietitian on GLP-1 medication, and I've been in the online space for about a year now, with my profile, my Instagram growing faster in the past like 6 months or so. But anyway, I realized I have never shared my journey from start to finish in a lot of detail. And so this is something I wanted to just go ahead and do on my very first YouTube video. I've never done a YouTube before publicly, and so this will be the first, and I'm really excited. And so thank you for being here and listening along. I guess I will get started with just like my childhood upbringing. And first of all, this whole thing is gonna be how I came to get on GLP-1 and why it has worked so well for me and so many other people, and just a little bit about my journey and the things that led up to me getting on GLP-1 medication. So anyway, as a child, I definitely had a mom who was into diet culture. It was the 90s, and so many people were into diet culture like that, and I totally get why she was like into that and everything. But this, like her being into diet culture, had a big impact on me, and it definitely made me, I watched her go on diets and be hard on herself and talk down about herself and everything. And that imprinted on me subconsciously. I didn't know it at the time, but now I can look back and see that was actually imprinting on me from a very young age. She was also like an aerobics instructor, and so she was very like health conscious, and she exercised, we exercised, she fed us really healthy food, and I'm grateful for that. But just seeing her go through the diets like she did was hard to watch, and seeing her dislike her body was also hard to watch because I have her body type, or a very similar body type to her, that's like bigger in the hips and the butt, and anyway, similar shapes. So yes, that imprinted on me. By the time I was like in my teens, I was definitely thinking about keeping my weight down and how I could keep my weight down and what I need to do to keep my weight down. I was definitely a thinner teen, not thin, but like a healthy average size, but I did not want to gain weight. And there'd be times where I'd eat whatever I want, and I'd see my weight creep up, and I'd want to control it, and I'd want to bring it back down, because I knew that higher weight and gaining weight is not good, because of how I knew growing up watching my mom and everything. So it really started in my teens, like just the cycle of dieting and just like being conscious of my weight, when really I should have been way less worrying about it at that time in my life, when your metabolism is like at its all-time best. But anyway, that led into going into college. I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I decided to become a dietitian because I was so weight obsessed during that time. Around my one of those early college years, I was in a couple weddings. I was in my sister's wedding, and then I was in like a friend's wedding, and I gained like the freshman 15, and I wanted to get it off. And so I started calorie counting, and that became like an obsession that I did for years on and off after that. It worked, but it also drove me crazy mentally. Like it just messed me up mentally. And so I would have a love-hate relationship with it. And anyway, I decided to pursue being a dietitian because I wanted to know like the secret to keeping weight off and to losing weight, and just managing metabolism and all. I wanted to know all the secrets. Newsflash, there are no secrets, really. There's no easy way to just manage your weight. But anyway, I didn't know that at the time. And I also loved health and the human body and just physiology and all. I loved learning about like different disease states. And so that was another reason that I decided to go into dietetics, because I wanted to be in healthcare, but I didn't want to like be a nurse and be giving shots and like hurting people and touching people. Like I didn't want to do all of the hard healthcare work, but I wanted to do something in healthcare that helped people and that dealt with like different disease states. And so that was a good choice for me. And after I became a dietitian, during those years of me just like getting into school and going through college and everything, I had some boyfriends and some breakups and some heartbreaks, and I somehow fell into using prescription uppers. And I was a really good student. I don't know if I really needed them at the time, but I convinced myself I needed them because once I tried them, I was like, oh my goodness, like this is the best feeling ever. Like I definitely have one of those addictive personalities that just really are drawn to, like, it was like a super high feeling. The first one I took was actually a diet pill because I was trying to lose weight after a breakup or something. And it was phentermine. I don't know if I'm allowed to say it on YouTube, but anyway, it was phentermine, and it was like a gateway into like prescription ADHD medications. And anyway, I think I did have some ADHD, but I think I managed it really well because I was just very driven and very motivated to do well in school, and I just really wanted to succeed and excel in everything. And so I think that I did have some ADHD, but I think it worsened over the years because I did get officially diagnosed like a few years later. But anyway, long story short, I fell into this cycle with prescription uppers, and I began taking way more than I needed. It became like an actual problem, and I felt like totally dependent on it. It was like over a few years' time, and one reason I loved it is because it did help suppress like the food noise and my appetite, and helped make it easier to maintain my weight, in addition to like those happy feelings that I got from it and the focused feelings. Like whenever I was taking it, I wasn't worrying about what my next meal needed to be or anything like that. I wasn't even worried about texting the guy back that I was into because my mind was focused on whatever the task of the moment was. So that's really why I liked it. But it became a dependence. And then eventually it came to the point where I was like running out of my prescription like halfway through the month, and I couldn't get more. And so I was either gonna have to turn to illegal drugs, like illicit drugs on the street, or I was gonna have to give this up. And I knew that what I was doing wasn't sustainable all along with these drugs, and I knew that I was gonna have to give them up eventually. So I tried. I eventually was able to give them up. It actually took a couple times. I relapsed once, and it was just some really tough years in general, but I was able to get away from them. And now I have been sober from those since 2017. And so it's been 7 years now. Thank God. Anyway, next part of my story is just that there were a few years between 2017 and 2023 where I just was like, I had like hard thing after hard thing. Like I went through a really hard breakup, and then I got into a relationship with a man who was even more unhealthy than that other breakup. And so it was like he was a narcissist, and he just really took advantage of my empathetic side and nature. And it was really a horrible year and a half. And eventually I got over that, got out of it. I broke up with him. I realized that how he was and that he was not going to change, and that I was even dependent on him in a way. Like emotionally, I was like addicted to the relationship itself. And so I eventually was able to get away, and I was still not in a healthy place at all. He was also very much like focused on weight and everything. So dating him like encouraged me to keep my weight under control. But after the drugs, after getting off drugs, like I did gain like 15 to 20 pounds like immediately. And then I was just like trying to keep that weight off and trying to keep it from going any higher for a while. With him, it was still that way, and it was that way for a few years. And then COVID happened in 2020. I broke up with that guy in 2019. And then I got a puppy in 2020. At the end of 2020, I also renovated my house, bought a house and renovated it. My dad got sick at the end of 2019 and was completely bedbound. He had dementia, and so I helped my mom. I actually bought the house next door to her, and so I helped her, and I was able to help her a lot with his care, and he couldn't do anything for himself. So that was a period of like over 2 years that he was in that state. So that was a really good thing that I got to be there. But after having my puppy for 6 months, he was attacked by a dog in the neighborhood and I had to put him down. That was extremely hard. And then I was doing Airbnb at the same time as well, trying to just make some extra cash and make ends meet. And I would like Airbnb my house and go stay next door at my mom's house. So that was very stressful. I worked a full-time job in healthcare at the same time. I actually worked in dialysis. And so I worked in dialysis for 5 years. And then 2022 came and my dad passed away in February of 2022. That was a struggle. Just even though we knew it was coming, like it's very hard when it actually happens, and it's very confusing. And you have this like caregiver guilt. Oh my gosh, did I do enough? Were we doing enough? And did we give him the best life? And then I like feel guilty about times where I didn't have a good attitude towards him or whatever. And so it was just really hard after he died too. And all those culmination of events throughout those few years, like I would try to diet a little bit and then I would just feel like, you know what, I can't deal with this right now, basically. Like there's too much going on in my life. Like this is too hard and forget it. And so 2022 is when my weight like really blew up to the highest it's ever been. Like my weight graph is kind of like a little roller coaster up over those 5 years. But anyway, so that 2022 was like a really rough year. And then I injured my foot at the end of 2022, and that was such a discouraging thing. I've never had an injury before or broken a bone or anything. And so I was like, I wasn't super active consistently all the time, but I really like to walk. And so that made it to where I could not like even go walk around the block for exercise. And so that was extremely discouraging, and my weight really ballooned up after that too. So let's get into my GLP-1 journey and how this all came about. I actually first heard of GLP-1 medication in 2022, like in the fall. Someone I knew was on it, and then a couple other people I knew, they told me they were on it, and it was like everybody was doing so well on this medication and like just having the best experience and losing the weight. And I was very skeptical. I was like, I just don't want to get on something that is going to be something that's temporary and I can't get off of in the future. That was my biggest thing holding me back. And so I didn't do it for, I think it was like 8 or 9 months between the time I first heard about it until May of 2023 when I like actually decided to pursue and try to get on the medication. So I think I was at an all-time like low, and like I was super heavy, and I just did not feel good about myself and in my body. And maybe I wasn't heavy to some people's standards, but it was very heavy in my own standards. And I was at an obese BMI during that time. But I know that still there's a lot of other people who start at a much higher BMI, and I'd never got to a super high BMI like that. But even this BMI felt so uncomfortable to me, and I knew that something had to happen or else I was gonna just continue and get to a BMI of the morbidly obese BMI range. And so I've decided I was finally sick and tired of being sick and tired, and I decided to reach out to a provider about starting GLP-1 medication. My insurance covered Wegovy, so they put me on Wegovy to start. At that time, like I had heard about Mounjaro and I wanted to be on Mounjaro, because I had heard such good things about it. But Mounjaro wasn't really for weight loss at the time, and Wegovy was approved for weight loss. So they automatically put me on Wegovy because I didn't have type 2 diabetes, and I was doing this for weight loss purposes. They put me on Wegovy in May of 2023. I took a couple shots of it, and I felt really sick right away, like within hours of taking the first dose. Not like unbearably sick, but very like uncomfortably sick, but not in a way that was like actually suppressing my appetite or making it easier for me to eat less. Like I could still eat the same amount of food. I wasn't really losing weight from that. And so I decided after a couple weeks, like I kind of dreaded taking the shot because I knew it was gonna make me feel sick and it wasn't really benefiting me. So I stopped Wegovy after a couple weeks at that lowest dose of 0.25 milligrams. After that, I felt really discouraged because I was like, man, I'm not gonna be able to get on Mounjaro because I don't have diabetes and everything. And I know that this provider online won't prescribe it to me. And I kind of went for like maybe 2 or 3 weeks and I was like, just feeling like, man, this one thing I was hoping would work didn't work. And now what do I do? Like, I don't know what to do because I can't get Mounjaro. And so after a couple weeks of just moping around and feeling like, what am I gonna do? I decided I'm gonna find a doctor that will prescribe this to me, even if I have to go to a bunch of doctors. I reached out to a girl who I knew locally who was on Mounjaro, and I asked her who her doctor was that prescribed it to her. And I went to this doctor to get on Mounjaro, and he was like trying to put me on phentermine. Duh, it was like a weight loss clinic. But I was like, no, I've had problems with that in the past. Like, I'm never going to be able to be on anything like that again. It's funny that they push like phentermine before Mounjaro. I know it's like an older medication stuff, but shown to be like very temporary, it has very temporary benefits, and it's a lot more risky because it's a controlled substance and stuff. So I don't know why they're still pushing it. But anyway, so I like begged this man to give me Mounjaro and told him that phentermine would not work for me. And I tried it in the past and I had a problem with it. He prescribed me the Mounjaro. And so I took my first Mounjaro pen of 2.5 milligrams on June 6, 2023. So a few weeks after the Wegovy. And I felt immediate benefits. Within the first few hours, I felt a little bit of appetite suppression and I felt a little bit of a difference, but not in a way of where it was like bad side effects like the Wegovy had done for me. So I was extremely hopeful and I was just like, I'm gonna make this work for me no matter what. Like I have no option but to make this work for me. So that is when I began my Mounjaro journey. And I continued on the 2.5 for a month. And then I got a box of the 5 because I heard that's what you're supposed to do is go up to 5 the next month. And so I had a box of 5 and I was losing on the 2.5. I think I didn't weigh for like the first 2 weeks because I didn't want to see, I was like scared to see the scale not moving, even though I was like trying very hard and putting a lot of effort in to see change quickly. And so I was like really watching my diet during those first few weeks very closely. I really wanted to see a difference. And so I did after 2 weeks, I think I had lost 3 pounds. And then after another few weeks, I think I was down like about 7 pounds after the first month in total. So I was extremely happy with that. Anyway, I took a 5 milligram shot one time. I was like on vacation in Florida with my family. And oh my goodness, I felt so awful from that 5 milligram. I was like, never mind, I'm going back to 2.5. So after that, I went back to 2.5. I stayed on 2.5 from June, July, August, and at the end of September is whenever I changed to 5 milligrams. And my weight loss kind of slowed over those months. It was like 7 and 6 and then 6.5. It was like it was still good numbers and I was really happy with my weight loss in those first few months, but I could tell it was slowing, and I could tell like that the appetite suppression was not as good. And so at the end of September, after 4 boxes, or no, it was 3 boxes. It was after 12 weeks. 12 weeks on the 2.5 is whenever I switched to the 5 milligram. 3 boxes, I believe. It's all blurry now because I've changed things up so many times. But anyway, so 12 weeks on 2.5, then I went to 5, and I was on 5 for 20 weeks. Oh my gosh, no, it's 16 weeks. I can't do math. Anyway, I was on 5 milligrams for the next 4 months. It was basically September, October, November, December. So I guess I started the 5 at the beginning of September. So I was on those. I continued to lose weight, but it honestly, it didn't pick up. It didn't get faster when I moved to 5. It kind of stayed the same, and then it continued to go down a little bit. I felt a lot worse on 5. Like, I had the whole month time to just get used to 5 milligram. Like, I had lots of like flu-like symptoms, like backaches, stomach aches, just feeling yuck, like even like some kind of like muscle aches and joint pain. It was really weird, and skin sensitivity and like touching my skin kind of hurt, which also was very weird. And then just extreme appetite suppression, nausea, and food aversions. But I got through it, and after a month it was okay. It was like the worst side effects were gone, and I still had like appetite suppression and still like nausea pretty much every week after the shot. So I lived with it because I wanted to get down to my goal weight and continue losing weight steadily. By the end of December, it was like Christmas time, and I had the episode of low blood sugar, which kind of scared me, and I just felt really sick. I was out shopping for Christmas, and it was just like, it took a couple hours to recover from that because I really didn't know what was going on. I've never had a low blood sugar like thing like that happen before, and so I really didn't know what it was going on. But now looking back, I realized it was a low blood sugar episode. And so I had that happen. I got sick before Christmas at my aunt's house, and like she had cooked something that was like kind of like fattening and rich. It was like, I think it was called King's Ranch chicken. I don't know, but it was very rich. And I ate some, not a whole lot, just a little bit. And like I was sick for the rest of the day, and like in the night I vomited from it. And it was just that chicken, like my body was just not agreeing with it. And that was like the first time I'd vomited from something that was food related. And I hate vomiting. It grosses me out so bad. Like I just want to avoid it at all costs. And like even Zofran wasn't helping for that situation. Anyway, during that time, I just like really felt kind of icky, and I had lost a good amount of weight. I think I was down like about 40-ish pounds by the end of December, and I decided I was actually wanting to go back to the 2.5 because I just didn't want to feel sick and that much aversion to food anymore. I remember thinking like around that time, like, well, my weight loss has slowed. Like I only lost like maybe 3 pounds in December, like not very much over the whole month for being on 5 milligrams and having a very suppressed appetite. So I remember thinking, okay, I guess it's time to go up to 7.5. And I was like, how am I going to do that? Like, I feel like crap on this dose. Like, how am I going to go up to a higher dose? I did the opposite and decided, you know what? I would rather like work harder and put more effort in and be more just conscious of my meals and go down in dose and have less appetite suppression than to feel this way. So in January, I went back down to 2.5, and my weight did stall a little bit. It went like, I think I lost 2 pounds in January. And so I was okay with that. I still had a little bit more to lose. I think I was still about 10 pounds from my goal weight. So or about 5 to 10 pounds. I kind of have a goal weight range. So anyway, after that, I went down to 2.5, and then I quit my job around that time, and I was gonna go travel. And I just thought, you know what? Let's see what happens if I go without the medication for a bit. So I took a 3-week break from the medication, which at the time I was like, oh, this is the worst idea. But now I'm like, you know what? It's not that big of a deal. Like, looking back, at least I kind of learned, because you tend to forget what your appetite and food noise and hunger levels were like before getting on the medication. And taking a little break actually kind of reminded me of all of that and made me get back on. But when I got back on, the medication felt more just stronger, and it felt more effective. It's like it kind of gave me a little bit of tolerance back or something, or like I don't know how to describe it. Anyway, so after that, I actually came back on compound tirzepatide because 2.5 wasn't really enough to it didn't give me that much appetite suppression. And then 5 was making me sick. And so I really wanted something in the middle. And so I got on compound tirzepatide to be on like a middle dose, and I would take between 3 milligrams to 4 milligrams every week. And in March, I lost my last 6 or 7 pounds and got to my goal weight. And I was so happy with that, doing that on that 3 milligram dose, 3 to 4 milligram dose per week. And it worked great for me. I felt good enough, and I still had appetite suppression. So that was really good. And then in April, I stayed on the compound tirzepatide another month, even though I was at my goal. I don't think I lost any more weight, maybe like a pound or something. And then in May, I decided I was going to start tapering down and see if I could taper down and eventually get off the medication. So in May, I started 2.5 milligram dose of Mounjaro that I had left over. And so I got back on 2.5 once a week, and then did that through June. July, I started to space out that 2.5, and same with August. And then in August, I switched to Zepbound. My insurance was no longer covering Mounjaro, but it did cover Zepbound. So I had a box of 2.5 of Zepbound, and I literally took one and it felt like nothing, and I was so annoyed about that. And this is, what the heck, Eli Lilly? Like, why does this feel like nothing whenever I switch from Mounjaro 2.5 to Zepbound 2.5? I kind of got a little mad and decided I'm gonna go ahead and get off and see how long I can go and see how it is off the medication. Over the past, 10 weeks or so, I was off the medication, and it went okay and things were going pretty good, but my period went away completely, which I thought that was really interesting. Just like, I've always had PCOS since I was like in my 20s. I was diagnosed in my early 20s, but I've never had my period go away for this amount of time. And so I was like, this is really bothering me, because it signals to me that my hormones are off. And that was very upsetting to me. And then the other thing I noticed being off the medication was actually that my focus decreased a lot. Like, I had less mental space and less like creativity and focus. And I was working on a course, and I was working on some things on the back end of my business, and I was just struggling so much to get things done and to organize my brain and my thoughts. And it just felt like ADHD came back, was like at full force, and it was such a struggle. And so between those two things, like, I decided, you know what, this is not worth like just trying to be off of the medication for. Like, the medication had more benefits than just weight and just appetite suppression. Like, it actually helped my ADHD and gives me energy, which I just didn't realize because I hadn't had a long break from the medication in a while. So I just restarted a low dose, or what I call a microdose, of compound tirzepatide. And so far, so good. I really just started in the past week, so it has not been very long, but it's going well so far. My energy went through the roof, and then so did my focus, and my creativity is coming back too. So I'm really thankful for that. No sign of the period. No, I'm not pregnant. I know you're thinking that. That's not it. We'll see what happens with my female hormones, but hopefully it shows its face soon. And anyway, this is my story in full. This video turned out to be a little bit longer than I expected, but I hope you enjoyed hearing about just my journey on GLP-1 medication. And if you have questions or have like certain types of videos that you would like to see me create in the future, just leave those in the comments, and I will try to start creating some YouTube videos. I don't really know what I'm doing, but I'm going to just push through and do it anyway, because I love to create, and that's really something that just brings me a lot of joy. I hope you enjoyed this, and thank you for watching.